Smithfield Plantations. Not sure what that is, but could be slave quarters. Another log cabin on the Smithfield Plantation. Again, it could be slave quarters. Check out the fences. Still like they were back in the day. Huh?
Walk away. Come on.
1774 Smithfield Plantation House.
No, we're reading. This is Smithfield.
He named the plantation after his wife, Susanna Smith, being her maiden name. She's in Carlson.
And don't look at my shoes.
Okay.
I thought she was doing a picture.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Colonial home. It was built between the years 1772, finished, moved into by 1774. Now, the home was built by Colonel William Preston, his slaves, his servants, his indentured servants, and two of his nephews helped actually physically build this. And it's an amazing house. About 90% of it is original to that time frame.
Mm.
There has been some things fixed over time. Now, when I first start talking about the house, people don't get the context. So I have to tell you why the house looks the way it does, because it is kind of a random looking house, and why it's here in this particular location. To do all that, I have to tell you when Preston first gets here to the colony of Virginia. So now we're going to go all the way back to 1738. That is when Colonel William Preston came as an 8-year-old. So halfway down the valley of Virginia, y'all saw a sign probably for Stanton, and you might have pronounced it Staunton. There is where they set up doing an ordinary, a tavern slash hotel slash general store on the Great Wagon Road. For kids, when I do it, the 4th graders, the comparison that I make is that they set up a Sheetz on Interstate 81. They were going to have constant business flowing past them. They were going to have to work really hard, but they were always going to have an income. So the Preston set that up, and William Preston, young man, 8, works as a clerk for the rest of his existence with his parents until he is 18 years old. When he is 18, his dad died. Unexpectedly had a heart attack. Uncle James, the man who had all the land, had by this point in time become a billionaire in today's terms. He owned all this land, made all this money, had become a colonel and a shedder, a coroner, down here, and William Preston's dad died. James Patton's very wealthy, influential, so his sister, Elizabeth, William Preston's mom, goes to him and says, will you take your nephew and make sure he gets properly educated and make sure he's successful in the colonies. So I'm just going to hand him over to you. James Patton readily takes him, happy to take his nephew because he needed a little extra, manpower to do things. He becomes his clerk for him, and then James Patton fulfills the education roles. He gets him enlisted, William Preston, with the Anglican Church through the vestry and gets his education. These guys were Presbyterian, but the Anglican Church was the established church of Virginia, like the Catholics were for Maryland. So same, a little bit of difference, but same idea.
It's still a Lutheran church here, right?
Oh, yeah,
I saw one.
We have several Lutheran
Wow.
churches. We have actually a lot of interesting old churches in here that are still the original churches. James Patton would bring supplies every once in a while to bring to the meadows. He still had his land office here, so he liked to try to sell land while he was in the area. So he and William Preston bring salt, guns, and ammunition in July of 1755. This area had the lead mines. They're up in Whitfield, a little bit south of here. That lead from those lead mines supplied all of the ammunition needed for the Continental Army and the Patriot Army. That's where all of it came from. The entire war, 8 years. That fence versus this fence here.
Gotcha.
And this tree, this is a maple tree, 250 years old.
Wow.
We tapped it. We tap it every year. I have a whole bunch of sap that I haven't turned into syrup
Wow.
yet. We'll do that probably next week. We had a big 200-year-old walnut tree, that open area. We lost it during the derecho a couple years back. Out front in the house, when you come in the parking lot, you see one solid tree by itself down there.
Okay.
500-year-old oak tree.
Wow.
It's an amazing tree. And we have a sycamore that's off behind the pavilion that's about 300 years old, and that's where the original spring was at. And we're in the process, hopefully, of rebuilding the spring on the original spring site and have an interpretive area there. So a lot of landscape that's very interesting to this house too. I gotta kind of pull this up here. These are our real, though unpolished sentiments of liberty and loyalty, and in those we are resolved to die, live and die. So this is the first document that says they're willing to die for the idea of liberty. And they all sign it. And the person that we think could have possibly written it is Colonel William Preston. And he references all these different reasons for this document. He references the resolution from the mountains as one of his paradigms, and it is almost the exact same line of the Declaration of Independence. So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And we like to think that William Preston really did write it, but he's most assured. This room is called the drawing room. It's the room for entertainment. Drawing means withdrawing away from the dining room table, because the midday meal lasted from, 2 o'clock to 7. So you have all these different breaks and you withdraw for your entertainment. So you come in here and the men would have whiskey and play cards and smoke burley tobacco and talk politics and just do what men do. So really nothing has changed. Men do the same thing today. Ladies would have their entertainment over here at a separate table, sometimes or at the same time. And the ladies would have tea and, be all dainty and, don't talk politics if they want to know about that. But they would entertain themselves here. 3 stories, but they never count the English basement, so it's a story and a half. Again, what you see in Williamsburg. Now, have y'all been to Williamsburg?
No.
I keep talking about it.
Not yet.
But some of Baltimore has a little bit of the same flavor too. But you get to go?
I'm going on a field trip there.
I get ready to say in school.
Is it in Virginia?
It's on the coast of Virginia. I saw that already.
No, not yet. We're going to try to find it.
Okay, it's real easy. And there's right behind Solitude is a cabin. That's the slave quarter. The original slave quarter is still there. And I went and cleaned it up a couple of years ago. They don't clean it up as well as they should. So it's a cute little cabin. Kind of has a loft like this in it. So anyway, there was 98 slaves between the 3 here, and then across the street was another plantation called Whitethorn. So it wasn't all 98 slaves here at Smithfield. And Thomas and Othello was at Solitude. Janie, Aunt Jenny really is her name. She was here.
Okay.
And she's in the cemetery. And then we, actually I don't know any of the slaves' names that were at Whitethorn. We have all their names, but listing them out is a bit difficult.
I knew it was Jenny. Somebody said Virginia.
Well,
Her
it's
name
Virginia.
is Virginia.
Virginia Capers. Oh, she marries. Aunt Jenny. Aunt Jenny.
They called her Aunt Jenny.
Yeah.
But her name was Virginia. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
And then there's 2 other slaves that we know about in the cemetery. So remind me when we get over there, I'll show you where their things are at too. Don't know their names.
William and Susanna's bedroom.
Now, the reason they would sleep, their visitors would sleep here with them, I know they had the trunks. Yeah, a little bit. The trunks would help a little bit. But upstairs, you had 12 kids up there. You had 5 slaves sleeping in that landing that we were in. They would sleep where they worked, so they were up there. And at the very least, 9 indentured servants. Now, they're all up there too. Very tight space. You saw how short the ceilings were. I bet it got noisy and just claustrophobic up there. So the visitors would sleep here.